He carved his name into a beam. Proof that he existed. Proof that he mattered. But nobody saw it. Nobody noticed when he disappeared. The loneliest feeling in the world, surrounded by people who don't see you. Welcome to Buddha's Wisdom. I'm Matt. Today we're exploring something the Buddha figured out 2,500 years ago that changed everything. A gift that costs nothing, takes 30 seconds, but almost nobody gives it anymore. If you've ever felt invisible, this one's for you. You're crying in your room, the quiet kind. Your mom knocks. She asks if you're okay, so you wipe your face fast, say you're fine. Dinner's ready. Door closes. You're still not okay, but nobody's asking anymore. It's not just tonight, it's been building for weeks, months maybe. Yesterday you tried telling your friend about something that happened. They nodded, while scrolling through their phone. Yeah, that sucks, they said without looking up. Last week at dinner you mentioned feeling overwhelmed. Your dad changed the subject, to talk about his day at work. In class you raised your hand to answer a question. The teacher called on someone else, like your arm wasn't even there. Small moments, each one a tiny erasure, each one teaching you the same lesson. What you feel doesn't matter, what you think isn't important. Who you are isn't worth noticing. So you learn to go quiet, to say I'm fine, even when you're breaking. To take up less space, to need less, to disappear a little more each day. And the worst part? Nobody even noticed you were disappearing. Ever feel like you're screaming in a room full of people who can't hear you? Like you could vanish completely and the room wouldn't change? That ache, that specific loneliness of being surrounded by people who don't really see you, that's what we're talking about today. If you've seen The Perks of Being a Wallflower, that tunnel scene, for a moment, you're not invisible. You feel infinite, because someone actually sees you. What if I told you the greatest gift you can give another person costs nothing, takes maybe 30 seconds, but almost nobody ever gives it? 2,500 years ago, someone figured this out, changed the world with it. And by the end of this video, you'll know how to do it too. But first, I need to tell you about a woman who felt exactly what you're feeling right now. She lived a long time ago in ancient India, and her story changed everything. Her name was Kisāgotamī. Her son is maybe 2 years old, has been dead for hours, and she won't accept it. She goes house to house pounding on doors. Please, medicine. Someone must have medicine to wake him up. People turn her away. Pity, fear, eyes that slide off grief, some with disgust. Most just look away. She's losing her mind with grief and everyone can notice that, but nobody knows what to do with her. Then someone says, go to the Buddha. If anyone has medicine, he does. She finds him teaching under a tree, throws herself at his feet. Please, my son, I need medicine to bring him back. The Buddha looks at her, really looks at her, not at the dead child, not at the spectacle she's making, at her, at what's actually happening inside this woman. And he says something that sounds cruel at first. I can help you. But first you need to bring me a mustard seed, a single mustard seed from any house in the city that has never known death. She lights up. Finally, someone who will help. She runs to the first house, knocks. Have you lost someone? A father? Mother? Child? The woman at the door pauses. My father, last year. Kisāgotamī thanks her and moves to the next house. My daughter died in childbirth. Next house. My husband. Next house. My son, same age as yours. She goes to 10 houses, 20, 50, every single house. Somewhere around house 30, she stops running. stands there in the street with hands empty and no mustard seed, but something else. Something she didn't have before. She's not alone. By the time the sun sets, she's back at the Buddha's feet, but she's different. "There is no house without death," she says quietly. The Buddha nods. "No, there isn't. All conditioned things are impermanent." Dhammapada 277. He didn't give her medicine for her son. He healed her blindness to what it means to be human. He looked past her request to her real suffering. She didn't need to bring back her child. That was impossible. She needed to know she wasn't drowning alone, that every single person in that city carried the same weight, that her grief wasn't unique. It was human. The Buddha witnessed what she actually needed. And that moment, that's what this whole story is really about. The Buddha had this ability that unnerved people. He could look at you and recognize the real you, not the version you showed the world. We told Aṅgulimāla's full story before, the serial killer who wore a necklace of human fingers. I'll leave it for you below. But here's what matters. Everyone saw a monster. The Buddha saw a drowning man. One conversation. One moment of being truly witnessed, not judged, not feared, not condemned. And Aṅgulimāla's entire life changed direction. He became a monk. The man who killed people learned to save them. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased. Dhammapada 5. Or take Sunīta, born into the lowest caste, untouchable, spent his life cleaning toilets and being treated like human garbage. Everyone saw trash. The Buddha saw a disciple. First time in Sunīta's entire life anyone had looked at him and acknowledged worth. He went from cleaning toilets to teaching the Dharma. One moment of being seen changed his destiny. 3 people, 3 different needs. Kisāgotamī needed to be witnessed in her isolation. Aṅgulimāla needed to be recognized in his humanity. Sunīta needed to be acknowledged in his worth. The Buddha didn't respond to what people showed him. He responded to what they were carrying underneath. Which makes you wonder, if witnessing people is this powerful, why are we all so terrible at it? Three reasons we fail at this. First, we're too busy performing. You're at a party, someone's telling a story, and you're nodding along. But really? You're thinking about the story you're gonna tell next, planning your response, making sure you look interested. You're not listening, you're waiting for your turn. We perform connection instead of living it. We treat people as audience members, not as humans. Second, we project what we expect. Your friend's always late and you've labeled them irresponsible. So now every time they're late, it confirms your story. You don't notice the anxiety that makes them leave the house 4 times before they can actually go anywhere. You don't recognize the ADHD they're struggling with. You don't acknowledge the reality. You acknowledge your filter. The Buddha called this wrong view, micca ditthi. We perceive the world through layers of our own projections, judgments, expectations. We don't witness what's there. We witness what we think should be there. Third, we're scared of what we might find. If you truly recognize someone's pain, you feel responsible for it somehow. Surface level is safe and lonely. We've all done this. Someone reaches out in their own way and we pretend not to notice because diving deeper feels like too much. Here's the truth. Last week I was scrolling Instagram while my friend was trying to tell me something. I heard the words, but I didn't actually listen. Totally missed that they were asking for help. Felt awful when I realized it later. This isn't about being perfect. We all fail at this constantly. But understanding why we fail, that's the first step to actually changing. You're in a group chat with your friends. Everyone's joking around, memes flying, someone roasts someone else, and everyone laughs. You type, LOL, ever feel like disappearing for a while? Fire emoji, skull emoji, 3 crying laughing faces. Mood. The conversation moves on and nobody asks if you're joking. You stare at your phone. Part of you wanted someone to notice, to ask if you meant it. The other part is relieved nobody did, because then you'd have to explain the weight you've been carrying, and you don't even have words for it. You lock your phone, set it down. Feel that familiar hollow ache of being alone in a room full of people who care about you but don't actually see you. Then your phone buzzes, a DM. One person from that group chat. "Hey, are you actually okay?" 4 words. Your hand starts shaking. You don't know why you're shaking. It's just 4 words. But suddenly there's this pressure building in your chest because someone looked past the joke. Someone noticed what you were really saying. Someone cared enough to ask privately instead of moving on with the memes. You try to type, "Yeah, I'm fine," but your vision blurs. You're crying. Not the quiet kind anymore. The kind that's been building for weeks and finally has permission to break. Because someone saw you. Not the presentation. Not the "LOL, I'm fine" version. The real you. The one who's been drowning and pretending to swim. You type back, "Honestly, not really." And for the first time in weeks, you tell someone the truth. The actual truth. Not the edited version. Not the "don't worry about me" deflection. The raw, messy, scared truth. And they listen. They don't try to fix it. They don't say it'll get better or you're being dramatic. They just sit with you. In your mess. In your pain. In your real. When you finally stop typing, your chest feels lighter. Not because anything changed. Your problems are still there. But you're not carrying them alone anymore. Someone knows. Someone sees. You can breathe again. That's the difference between being noticed and being truly witnessed. Maybe you've been that person in the group chat, typing something that's clearly a cry for help disguised as humor. Maybe you've been the person who sent that DM. Either way, you know how much it matters. But most of us never learned how to do this. Nobody taught us. So let me show you what this looks like in real life. The Buddha had a word for this kind of recognition. Karuna usually gets translated as compassion, but that word's been beaten to death. People think compassion means feeling sorry for someone or being nice. That's not it. Karuna means feeling with someone, not pity. That's looking down. Not sympathy. That's feeling bad for them. Compassion isn't fixing the dark. It's keeping someone company until their eyes adjust. As the Buddha said in the Metta Sutta, just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, so should one cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings. The Buddha trains the heart in the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, metta, compassion, karuna, empathetic joy, mudita, and equanimity, upekkha. These aren't traits you're born with. They're trainable states. Practice grows them. The Buddha taught his monks a practice. Sit quietly. Think of someone suffering. Not to feel bad for them, but to recognize their suffering as clearly as you recognize your own. Because once you recognize it clearly, compassion isn't something you do. It's what naturally happens. Second piece, mindfulness. Not the lifestyle trend, the original practice, clear seeing. The Buddhist version, sati, means witnessing things as they actually are, not filtered through your expectations and judgments. Here's what seeing clearly really means. Notice suffering, notice clinging, notice change, and respond with a steady heart. Remember the 4 noble truths we broke down in another video? The first truth is recognizing suffering, dukkha, clearly. That's this. Witnessing the person in front of you clearly. Not who you want them to be, not who they're pretending to be, who they actually are. Real attention? Most people won't get it once this week. That's how rare it is. Third, right view, samadhi. The Buddha taught that most suffering comes from inaccurate perception. Perceiving permanence where there's change, perceiving separation where there's connection, perceiving solid self where there's constant flux. Right view isn't positive thinking, it's accurate perception. And reality is this: the person across from you is struggling. Maybe not visibly, maybe they're smiling, maybe they seem fine. but everyone's carrying weight. Can you recognize it? So how do we turn this into something real? Step 1. Drop your agenda. Next time someone's talking to you, notice where your mind goes. Planning your response? Drop it. Thinking about what you'll say next? Drop it. Judging what they're saying? Drop it. You're not there to perform. You're there to witness. Step 2. Look for what's hidden. Everyone's wearing some version of themselves they want you to believe. Your job isn't to accept that at face value. If your friend says, "I'm fine," but their voice cracks slightly, that's the truth. Not the words, but the crack. If your parents nagging you about grades, underneath that is probably fear. Fear you won't be okay. Fear they failed you somehow. If your coworker snaps at you, underneath that is exhaustion, stress, pain they can't share at work. Look past the surface. What are they not saying? Step 3. Ask the deeper question. How are you? Gets autopilot answers. Try these instead. What's really going on with you? Or, you seem off today, are you okay? Or, I noticed you've been quiet, what's on your mind? And then this part's crucial. Wait. Don't fill the silence. Don't rush to comfort. Don't offer solutions. Awkward is okay. It means the walls are coming down. Wait. Let them find the words. Most people will crack, not because you're forcing them, but because someone finally gave them space to be honest. You'll fail at this constantly. You'll zone out mid-conversation. You'll judge when you meant to just listen. You'll notice their presentation and decide it's easier not to look deeper. That's fine. The Buddha didn't teach perfection. He taught practice. Try again tomorrow. And here's where the story turns inward. Because the Buddha's teaching on seeing others was never just about kindness, it was about waking up. This changed how I see everything. The Buddha taught that when you truly witness another person, when you drop your judgments and projections and just recognize them clearly, something shifts in you too. Because all those filters you use to judge them, you use those same filters on yourself. I watched this happen once. Friend of mine was going through hell, stopped showing up to class, stopped answering texts. We'd ask if he was okay and he'd say, "Yeah, just busy." But his eyes were empty. One night around 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep, decided to check on him. Found him sitting on his bathroom floor in the dark, just sitting there. Hadn't showered in days, hadn't eaten, hadn't left his apartment in almost a week. The tile was cold, the bathroom light was off, just the glow from the hallway, casting this long shadow across the floor where he sat with his back against the bathtub. He looked up when I came in, and I saw it. Not the "I'm fine" mask he'd been wearing, the real thing underneath. Complete conviction that he was broken beyond repair, that everyone would be better off if he just disappeared, that there was something fundamentally wrong with him that could never be fixed. I didn't know what to say. All the usual phrases felt hollow. It'll get better. You're not alone. People care about you. True, maybe, but not what he needed to hear. So I just sat down next to him on that cold bathroom floor. Didn't say anything at first, just sat there in the dark with him. No words, just breathing. The hum of the bathroom fan. The sound of 3 people existing together in the dark without pretending. After a while, another friend showed up. Must have gotten my text. She sat down on his other side. We sat there for maybe 10 minutes in silence, 3 people on a bathroom floor at 3 a.m. It's the Goodwill Hunting move, the office scene. Sit with the pain until the armor drops.
Look at me, son. It's not your fault.
I know.
It's not your fault.
I know.
No, you don't. It's not your fault.
I know.
It's not your fault.
All right.
It's not your fault. It's not
Then she said something so simple it almost sounded stupid. Not "you'll be okay," not "don't think like that," not "have you tried therapy?" Just acknowledgement of his pain, of his effort, of how hard he'd been fighting just to make it through each day. He broke, started crying. Not quiet crying, the kind that shakes your whole body, the kind you've been holding back for months. And then she started crying. Then I started crying, all three of us sitting on that bathroom floor crying together. Because once you really see someone else's pain, you can't unsee your own anymore. Later, she told me something I think about constantly. When I saw his pain clearly, I realized I'd been carrying the same pain, hiding it the same way, pretending I had it together while drowning inside. I thought I was alone and feeling broken. Seeing him struggle made me realize we're all struggling. We're all pretending. We're all terrified. We're the only one who's barely holding on. That night changed all three of us, not because anyone got fixed, not because the problems went away, because for the first time, we stopped pretending. We saw each other clearly, and in that seeing, we saw ourselves. That's what the Buddha meant. When you see someone else's suffering clearly, you notice your own. When you stop judging them, you stop judging yourself. When you acknowledge their struggle, you feel less broken for your own. The Buddha called this interdependence, paticca samuppada. When this exists, that exists. When this ceases, that ceases. We rise and fall together. Being less judgmental of them trains you to be less judgmental of you. The wall between me and them thins. All those walls we build between ourselves and others, they start to dissolve. You realize we're all Kisāgotamī, knocking on every door we can find, hoping someone's never known loss. And there isn't one. We're all on the bathroom floor. Some of us are just better at hiding it. We're all looking for someone to tell us it's okay to feel what we feel. That's it. That's the moment the Buddha pointed to. Remember that opening scene? You crying in your room, mom knocking, you saying you're fine, door closing. You're still not okay, but nobody's asking anymore. That moment, that specific loneliness, you know exactly what that feels like because you've lived it. Maybe not that exact scene, but some version of it. The moment you realized you were invisible. The moment you learned to say, "I'm fine," when you're breaking. If nobody's really seen you lately, consider this video your reminder. You deserve to be. Now imagine it differently. Imagine one person doesn't accept "I'm fine." One person sits down, looks at you, really looks at you, and asks what's actually going on. Waits for the real answer. Doesn't fill the silence, doesn't try to fix it, just sees you. Everything changes in that moment, not because your problems disappear, they don't. But suddenly you're not alone with them anymore. Suddenly you're visible, real. Like you matter, like your pain is valid, like you're worth someone's attention and care. That's the heart of this whole video, that moment, that gift, that choice to really see another human being. You can be that person for someone else, today, right now. This doesn't require years of meditation or Buddhist training or special skills. It requires showing up, paying attention, caring enough to look past the mask. Try it once today. Put the phone down, meet someone's eyes. See the person, not the performance. Their fear, their hope, their exhaustion, their trying, the weight they're carrying that nobody else notices. You might be the only person who does that for them today. You might be the only person who's done it for them in months. And here's what the Buddha knew, what that bathroom floor taught me, what Kisāgotamī learned going house to house. When you witness them, you finally recognize yourself too. This gift isn't just for them, it's for you. Because the walls you break down in others are the same walls keeping you isolated. The judgment you release toward them is the same judgment crushing you. The compassion you extend outward comes back inward. When you see them clearly, you learn to see yourself clearly. When you accept their struggle, you accept your own. When you sense their humanity, you reclaim yours. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "When you understand, you cannot help but love." That's the Buddha's compassion made modern. That's the gift, not just for them, For you. For all of us stumbling through this messy, beautiful, painful experience of being human together. If this hit you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more of these deep dives into ancient wisdom for modern life. Drop a comment and tell me about a time someone truly witnessed you, or a time you witnessed someone else. I read everyone, and your stories matter. Stay curious, stay wise, and maybe most importantly, stay seen.